You're listening to the Tony Steuer Podcast, where Tony interviews financial literacy advocates who are changing the conversation on money, so you can catch up on the latest trends and ideas in the world of financial literacy and education.
Welcome to the Tony Steuer Podcast. I'm pleased to be joined today by Jasper Smith. Jasper is the chief visionary behind a financial education company called the Build Wealth Movement. Jasper, welcome to the Tony Steuer Podcast.
Hey, Tony. Happy to be here today. Appreciate you.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us. I'm excited to talk with you today. So, as we get started, this is what I ask all my guests. Tell us a little bit. What is your origin story? How did you get started in financial wellness?
It started with my first job out of college. Had a business degree, didn't know what I really wanted to do professionally. Went to work for a large, I'll say insurance-based company, but they had, they do investments as well. And I was working in a rotational program. And so I was able to kind of get a flavor of the industry and just kind of had this realization pretty early on that I like this space. And I like it because I don't see a lot of people who look like me. And so when I think about, the wealth gap I'll say the wealth gap, and that's what drives me is seeing the data around these financial disparities in certain communities. But here I was at 21 kind of seeing like, I think I know why. I think my people who look like me or whatever shade, darker or lighter, need to hear this message from me or somebody like me. And I think understanding that people don't understand the language of money was my obsession. Like, I have to get them to understand that it's not that hard once we really dig in and build a solid foundation. But I quickly realized that some people didn't get the memo. You've gone through life, you've been successful, you may have an advanced degree, a nice title, a high income, but you still didn't you didn't get the basics of the financial piece. And so I found that, okay, no matter where some people are from, they still don't know. But I know. I've been learning. I've been taking tests. I've got licensed. Like, let me try to do my part to help. And so if possible, I know this is maybe a pipe dream, but can we work on trying to make money not a taboo subject? Because that's what I was seeing, Tony. Just, I've got to try to help people get comfortable with just talking about it, where it doesn't result in it doesn't result in an argument and somebody getting too, overly emotional. Like, I just kept seeing kind of the same few things happening no matter where I was in the country. And I'm like, I have got to do something to try to help out with this issue.
Well, that's great. And I agree with you. There's, so many things that aren't talked about. Money is a taboo subject in our society, and it's not equal. Pre-show, we were talking about some of the statistics. There's a gender gap in financial literacy. There's a racial gap in financial literacy. There's a income gap, socioeconomic gap. And, so as you start to change that, is how did you feel coming into the industry and seeing like, hey, there's not a lot of people like me? And what was that like?
It was a challenge. And growing up, I played sports and I just loved a challenge. Like, oh, you can't do this. So now I got to try to do it. And I got to try to do it at a high level. And I just took it as this, well, Jasper, if you don't do this, Jasper, who's going to do it?
I like that.
Because all my friends, we're all in a variety of industries, but, I didn't have a group of friends where at a younger age, we talked about money. Like, we talked about spending it, but we didn't talk about saving much of it. We didn't talk about investments. We didn't talk about entrepreneurship. And so I looked at just the conversations that I had growing up and realizing that, well, if our community started having these conversations more frequently and it became more of a comfortable topic to discuss openly, then maybe our conversations would have changed. Maybe we would have done things differently. Maybe. I don't know, right? But that's what I start to think about. Well, what if I started a little bit earlier? What if, I think about like my parents, and as great as the job they did, now that I've been in the industry for almost 15 years, I started like over my professional career, I started challenging them on like, why didn't y'all do this? Or tell me why you did this, and tell me, like, give me the real story, not the surface level. It was the right thing to do. We wanted to get better educated. No. What was the real reason? And so as an adult, it was so cool to kind of hear my parents' story of here's where we were. And we slowly just learned as we went along. And they became like my example of what it's like to grow up in a family that had limited means, but they somehow found success. And it was a long journey, Tony. And I think part of so like the media now, all we see is I wasn't successful, now I'm successful. And they missed the whole journey. And I've gotten that journey or that story from my parents. And I'm like, if these two people can figure it out, I think other people can also figure it out. And that's been my life's work, is trying to figure out how can I help more people to just see the light, to start doing something, even if it's not with me. Maybe it's sometimes indirectly. Can they just get to the point where they see that what we're telling them is actually legitimate? Here's what success looks like. Here's what you're doing. Can we bridge that gap? And it's a journey, it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. But having my parents and watching them, from having a child very early to my father having a very successful business to my parents retiring very well. So I'm like, there's my example. So let me ask this example more questions and really try to get to the bottom of like, tell me about the behaviors you had. Like, I love behavioral finance. I'm obsessed with that too, of like, just the way we think about money causes us to do certain things. The emotions that are attached to some of these financial decisions. I mean, that is where I probably have the most fun in any client interaction. Is like, let's get down to the story. Like, tell me why we're here, what happened. Everybody has what they call financial trauma. So let's unpack that. I'm not your therapist. I'm not your psychologist, but I need to know about some of those feelings and some of those thoughts and beliefs, so then we can figure out, okay, this is why we're here, but I know you want to get to a higher level.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm with you. I'm a student of behavioral finance, because I think that's really where it's at, is that we can really start to make a difference once we understand where people are really coming from and why they're making these decisions. But the other thing you said that really resonates, that I don't think people understand, is that it's a journey. Nobody got financially successful overnight. Maybe you got lucky and you bought some stock that shot up, but for most of us, it's a learning process, and there's going to be good days and bad days, and but it's can you keep growing your financial life and learning from mistakes that you may make? But as you said, it's about the habits and how you feel about things. So it's powerful stuff.
And Tony, it's even, you also can get lucky if you're born into it. So I think about like wealthy families that have like generation after generation just never seems to, I'll say, struggle. But the struggle for them is maintaining that status. So they still have to go through the same process of learning why the family does X and Y and Z and making these moves so they can maintain that status. But you think about families who don't have that. Well, now we're talking about, well, who's going to be the person in your family that changed the paradigm? Who's going to rewrite the story for the Smiths? So I'm a second generation. So now it's okay, well, I have a child. My brother has 2 kids. So now we got a third generation that we have got to say, okay, whatever we screwed up on, let's try to help them avoid the same pitfalls, because we know better, we can do better, and we have the means to do it, and the information and all the tech. Like, we have the capabilities, but we got to execute, Tony. That's the key word. And you said something earlier around, we talk about financial literacy, and somebody had challenged me on this before. They were like, well, Jasper, what's the difference between financial literacy and financial planning? And I said, well, I think financial literacy is about being aware. So all the educational work that I know you and I both do, the financial wellness stuff, the financial empowerment work. So people are aware. They've got technology where it's at your fingertips. It's on YouTube. I mean, you can get access. But I was like, financial planning is the execution. So you got all this information, all this knowledge, but if you don't apply that to your life, then how good was the information that you consumed? I've read some incredible books, but did I act on everything that I read in the book? Absolutely not. So the book was great. We're talking bestsellers here, but if I didn't apply and execute it, I'm always going to have that kind of, wow, why was this book so good? Well, Jasper, had you executed on some of the strategies, you would see why. And I think that's what happens in our space with financial services is there's all these moving parts, but nobody's helping people to kind of connect the dots, if you will. Mm-hmm. So Tony told me to do this. Jasper told me to do this. I saw something on Instagram. They said, do that. Great. So you got 3 varying opinions. They all could be suitable things for you, but what's really in your best interest and where should you be focusing first? And I think people still don't value financial planning to some degree. And so we find ourselves in these situations where we're not able to connect the dots. And so we keep going through life and we always have that kind of tension where it's like, I know I should be doing better, but I can't. Call Tony. You didn't call Tony back. You didn't call Jasper. You didn't call, you didn't call Mr. Bill Wealth. Like forget Jasper. Let's just call Mr. Bill Wealth and let's have a conversation about, let's figure out the top 3 things you got to focus on and let's just knock those out. Or let's begin to make some progress towards those things. And then it'll all start to make sense about what we have done, what we haven't done. And we'll go on this journey together.
Definitely. No, that's great. What you said there is, I think it's all about changing the paradigm, and it is about the execution. Financial literacy is great, but if you're not showing people how to integrate it into their life, then it doesn't do any good, to say you need to save. Well, okay. But how does that work for me? What do I save the money in? What do I do after I've started saving? So I've got my 90-day emergency fund. Now what? Which video do I watch next? And unless you have a plan, you're not going to get anywhere. So you're doing a couple of interesting things, and I want to make sure we get to both your book and generational poverty. So maybe let's start off talking a little bit about what is the Build Wealth movement?
It's an effort that's trying to help people figure out a financial game plan for every stage of life. So I was sharing with you, I just had a daughter. My life changed drastically. So I'm married. That's a life-changing event. You lose a job, you take a job, you move, but it is helping people to do an assessment of where you are, put some things in motion, and then the next life-altering event, let's do it all again. And the movement is about just tell me about where you are on your journey and how can I be of service to help you in maybe a limited capacity or even a larger capacity. But a lot of people don't know where they are. So let's just check up. How are you doing? Like give me I need a few numbers. I need your story, but I also need to see the numbers because the numbers will also tell me a story in addition to whatever you share with me. And so I wanted to get people comfortable with changing the way they think about money, changing the way they feel about money, so they can become a financial rock star. Like, I know we all have it in us. Like, Tony, I don't think anybody dreams about being poor. I don't think anybody dreams about that. It happens, but I think we all dream about being successful financially and of course, in life, but we're not living in a manner that's going to produce that successful result. And so whatever I can do to encourage people to have the conversation, to reach out to somebody like myself, just there's so many opportunities for us to do better, but we've got to be willing to put in the time, and we got to stop making the excuse that we can't do it. Like, we got to just stop. Like, you're not too busy. There's 8,760 hours in a year. I'm not asking for all of that. Give me an hour. Give me an hour every couple of months. you'll feel comfortable and confident with what you're doing. And so it just kind of, it just became this thing where I was like, I'm gonna be one guy that's gonna try to help. And then I've, done a lot of work over the years where I just keep partnering and trying to collaborate with other professionals, kind of like yourself, where it's like, we're all fighting for the same thing, to help people get a little bit more comfortable with money, to achieve those goals, to not have that stress that money causes all of us. And we know that's a big issue, with that a lot of other stressors in our lives, like our mental health and our physical health, are sometimes a direct result of the financial house being out of order. So I unpack a lot, but I enjoy it. It's fun. It's fun. I want to see if I can make a difference.
Well, that's what it's about, is making a difference, having a unique voice, because people are going to hear things in different ways from different people. So, the more, somebody may connect with you where somebody else may not, but it's good that people have this approach and they can say, okay, Jasper's approach really resonates with me.
Yeah.
And this ties it together for me. But again, I come back to is I love how you're connecting the different parts, that it's about how you feel about money. It's about what you're actually doing with money, and connecting it all together, not just letting them sit out there separately where somebody goes, I bought this product through Jasper, or I invested in this mutual fund, but I don't really understand it. And a week later, a month later, they call you and they say, what did I buy again? How's it going to help me?
Right. And Tony, I honestly I started asking that question initially when I meet with somebody, just, hey, what's your experience with people like me? And typically it's usually a negative story, Tony. Oh, they were pushing this product, I didn't understand it, and it didn't work out. And in my mind, I'm like, you didn't want to ask a few more questions. And so I in my mind, I'm thinking it, but it's not for me to judge the person and to really beat them down any further. It's just, hey, look, it happened. I understand now why it may have taken some time for you to reach out to me or to respond back to, and some outreach that I've done. But this feeling will go away once we start to get a plan in place. Again, it could be a plan on a napkin, or it could be a 20-page binder, but we're going to find a plan that's unique to you. I don't care what your friends are doing. I don't care what your mom, your dad, your brother, I don't care. What are you doing? And are you in the driver's seat? Because most people, honestly, when we're talking about their financial situation, and I use this car as the analogy, a lot of people are in the trunk. Like the car's just driving down a bumpy road, and they're in the trunk, just boom, 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 boom. Hey, let's get in the driver's seat. I don't want you in the back seat. I don't want you in the passenger seat. I want you in the driver's seat with your hands on the wheel. Now, Mr. Bill Wealth is going to be in the passenger seat. And I'm going to say, go left, go right. Now, you still are in control, but if I say go right and you go left and we're going out into the middle, look, it's going to end up in disaster. So it's about this level of, I need you to trust somebody at some point. I need you to relinquish a little bit of the control, all in the effort to help you. This is all for you. It's not for me. Yes, I'll get compensated a little bit, but that's, I think that's also the issue, is this money piece around, well, Jasper, I got to pay this. And yes, we have a living. This is how we earn our living. But and I had to explain to somebody, my compensation pales in comparison to what this is about to do for you. And if you just want to use life insurance, I mean, come on, the commissions we make off an insurance policy pales in comparison to providing for your family for, I don't know, forever, for 20 years. Yeah. I mean, but you have to get them to see that, because they think, God, I don't want to buy from Tony because Tony just wants to sell me. But Tony's probably trying to get you the policy that's most appropriate. And I've had that discussion with clients of like, look, I know how you feel. I know how you've been presented, but here's what I'm trying to do for you. I just want to actually see your family not struggle. I cringe when I see the crowdfunding posts after somebody has gone off to glory. Oh, we're trying to raise, insurance would have taken care of that. And so I'm seeing some of these same things that a family is doing time and time again. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way, right? There is another way that we can move in this life.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's 100%. I'm not going to ever get out the image of people being in the trunk while they're driving through their financial lives, because that sums it up. Most people's financial plan, it's like, I'm just going to sit by and let it happen.
Right.
So, I love that. But I think you hit on a really valid point about commissions, is that people very much focus on the commission, sometimes to the point where, I was a life insurance specialist, that was the majority of my career, is they would choose one policy over another because they were going to pay one policy paid a lower commission, even if it didn't provide them with better benefits. And it's like, well, why are you not focused on the benefits you're going to get and the actual expenses in the policy versus if one pays somebody a little bit more commission or not? It's not the right question. It's an important question.
Yeah.
To know how somebody's going to be compensated. But
yes.
The better question is, like, what are you going to get out of it?
Yeah. It's something I'll always have to battle, because I think people are just, again, we've seen so many examples of somebody who's been sold a bad product, insurance based, investment based. It's just, we've seen, or we've either seen it or we've experienced it, and it's more of those situations versus the good times.
Yeah.
So we can't even tell them that this is what it did for you. And I know we had this little rough patch, but you don't see a lot of those success stories being shared with the media, because again, we know fear is what the media wants to promote a lot of times, right? You got to act now. I need you to be afraid. I need you to do this, because if you don't, it's a wrap for you. It's the world's coming to an end. No, it's not. Again, if I'm thinking about my plan, like my plan, not Tony's plan, not your daddy's, not your cousin. Again, you have to think about what is in my best interest, and maybe this is the best solution. And if it's not, well, let's discuss why you think it's not.
I love that. It made me think, because, well, you mentioned you played sports. I used to play basketball. So that's like always, at least what I was told is, don't worry about somebody else's game. Worry about your game.
Yeah.
What can you do? I want to make sure we talk a little bit about generational poverty. Is, what is generational poverty?
So technically, it's when you have two generations that have struggled, like, substantially. So that's like the formal definition. So, let's say if you're my grandfather, you and all your siblings struggled, and now as your offspring, I too am going through the same struggle. So that's two generations. That's the normal definition. So for me, I'll say the Mr. Bill Wealth definition is, I just call it a continuous cycle of living financially irresponsible. And this irresponsibility, because somebody, again, we get emotional when you hear certain words and they trigger people. But I think some of this irresponsibility is by choice, like, better, but we don't do better. And then on the flip side, some of us just never got the memo. We really do not know that this is the wrong thing or the irresponsible thing to do. And so as we look at generational poverty, it's this repeating cycle of, we're all making the wrong, the bad, the least favorable decision financially, which has us in a certain position. So I know right before we hopped on, I was talking about the client who, like, the grandmother who's in her 60s, still has a student loan from undergrad. The mom or her daughter has also a student loan from undergrad or the master's program. And then the granddaughter also has a student loan. And so, Tony, I'm sitting here thinking, like, okay, you all value education. Got it. So it's the granddaughter where I think it rubbed me the most, was that, so grandma has a degree, mama has an advanced degree, and yet neither one of them saw fit to start putting money away earlier for the grandbaby. For, what? That is generational poverty. It's And they've done pretty well financially, but I think just that for them, it's just this one piece around student loans. I mean, what it's trillions of dollars that people owe.
Mm-hmm.
All that could have been avoided had we just started right from birth. So as soon as you got popped out the womb, let's set up some accounts, savings accounts, custodial accounts, 529. Let's do it right now. But for some reason, Tony, it doesn't trigger in our minds that now is the time. So it's always, I'll get to it later. And then later becomes your child is in high school. And now you're like, how are we going to get to college? Well, maybe we'll get scholarships, fellowships, grants. That's a maybe. Maybe your child doesn't have academic prowess to get scholarships. Maybe they don't have an athletic or artistic ability. So we can rule out some of those factors if we just got started. So then in case we have the athletic ability, the academic and the grades to get funding from colleges, then all the money you saved or invested is just gravy on top. So those are like stories that, or situations of families where this third generation with the daughter or the grandchild, like she's got to change it, because what's going to happen is, let's say whenever she decides to have a child, all she's going to remember is grandma has student loan, mama has student loan, I had a student loan. So student loans are now becoming the norm. So it's okay for you to take out a student loan. It's not. It should have been. It's always going to be an option, but who's breaking that cycle? So that's why I say it's this continuous cycle. Like, it's just, I really had to say it's irresponsible. Like, y'all knew better. But we have to be courageous enough to go out on a limb and try to rewrite the story for our family. And it takes a lot of courage, a ton, and vulnerability.
I love that. I was just actually writing it down while you were talking. And I think it gets back to actually where we came in when you were talking about, the modeling that your parents did.
Yes.
Is you had the opposite modeling where your parents were doing the things that they needed to do to meet their financial goals. Mm-hmm. And so you had a different generational experience. And I think that's so hard for people, is that you see that from generation to generation. And even sometimes you see it going the opposite way. Is, I've known wealthy families, and they say that with small businesses, and most small businesses don't make it to the third generation. Mm-hmm. Is that the cycles get all wonky. So to wrap up is, we've talked about a lot of things. I'd love to go deeper on some of this stuff, but we're running out of time. So, share with us, what is your number one tip on financial wellness?
Number one tip, build your money team.
I like that.
Don't go it alone. If you are, you're not going to be financially successful. I just don't feel like you're not going to, I'll take it back. I think you can be successful, but you won't achieve the levels of success that you dream about. You can get lucky. You can figure it out along the way. But when you work with a team of professionals, and you need a handful of people, they're going to help you stay focused and disciplined. So I'm a financial planner. I have people I work with. I'm human. I get emotional some days. I do irresponsible things with my money sometimes. I'm human. But then I have people I have to answer to, like, hey, Jasper, was that a great, you know what? Before I do that again, I probably should call you first, right? Like, it's like, why have a CPA? Because I don't want problems with the IRS. And I need an expert who does this day in and day out. It's worth the investment that I make into my CPA, because now I'm not getting in trouble with the government. And so it's those type of examples. It's the person who feels like they can become an expert at day trading, but you're a teacher. So where do you find the time to do all your research, watch the markets all day long as the world is moving, because you're teaching kids, right? Mm-hmm. But you're going to be very successful at day trading? I find it hard to believe that you're going to find some extra time in your stressful day to become an expert at trading. So I love people who are willing to do a little bit on their own. So I don't want to discourage people from doing some of their own trading, because technology is set up to where it is kind of easy now. Like with a couple of clicks, your account is open, is funded, is in the market. But generally speaking, you shouldn't be trying to do it all yourself when you're not an investment expert. I don't do it all myself. And I'm in the industry because I don't have the time to watch the market. Tony, something probably just happened in the news right now that I could have made some money on had I been paying attention. But we're doing this podcast here, so now I may have missed an opportunity just because I wasn't present. So when people say, well, why is a team important? I love talking about Jay-Z and Beyonce. And I asked them this question. They got 3 kids, and they're both moguls in their own right. Do you think either one of them is sitting around their phone all day trying to figure out the crypto markets and NFTs and their real estate deals and their business? Like, do you really think they have that kind of time? Because apparently the average person believes they do, Tony. If you build you a team of people around you, yes, maybe you're not the billionaire yet. That's okay. But you should be one hell of a thousandaire until you become a millionaire. And it helps to have people around you that can help provide you that guidance, who can help you not make the emotional decisions, who can, when times are maybe a little tough, sometimes you just need to vent. So they're there for those life-altering or life events that happen. We're like, I don't know what to do. Pick up the phone and talk to your team. We do it for other things and services in our lives, Tony. If your tooth hurt, you go to the dentist. You're feeling sick, you call your doctor. You got a legal concern, you call or find an attorney. Well, your financial planner, financial person should be right there on speed dial, just like those people. Until we get to that level, I think generational poverty is going to continue to persist. People will continuously feel like money is something they can't learn about. Investing is something that they can't do. That we're going to keep, feeding this monster that money has to be a taboo subject. We're going to keep feeding it until people kind of pull themselves out, begin to work with people, and then watch what happens as a result of you working with I'll say a quality group of people. There's some scammers out there who just take your money and do you wrong. But generally speaking, if you find the right people that you mesh well with and you continue to work with them, they get to know you and you build a relationship, I don't see why you can't become a financial rock star. I don't see it. It's not possible. Just because you keep positive people around you who are helping you, guaranteed you will figure it out.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I agree with you completely. I've used the doctor analogy myself. Is, there's a reason why you go to specialists is, some people go to MD and, they self-diagnose, but most of us are going to go to the doctor when we have an issue that needs medical attention, but yet we do self-surgery on our financial plan. And we wonder why, we have issues. My son's in high school and I've talked about the stock market and some of his friends are buying individual stocks. And it's like, okay, so like you said, it's like, so think about it. I go, there's all these guys on Wall Street. I go, they spend all day researching stocks. I go, they've gone to college. They have MBAs in investments. I go, they hire the smartest mathematicians in the world.
Yes.
And I go, so it's like you playing one-on-one with LeBron James. You can read about it, but LeBron James is a professional, eats, breathes basketball. You're not going to beat him.
Right.
And these are the guys you're going against,
Yeah.
The professional investment guys, you're not going to beat them. So, to wrap up, is where can people learn more about the Build Wealth movement? Where can they find your book, The Build Wealth Challenge?
Yeah, I'll drive everybody to the website, thebuildwealthmovement.com. The book is listed on there. It'll take you right to the Amazon site. You can definitely read it, tell me what you think about it. But maybe it's useful, maybe it's not. I'm always open for feedback. But the buildwealthmovement.com, you can read all about what I'm working on. I have an incredible blog section where I give a lot of, I'll call it evergreen type of material where no matter the day you decide to pick it up, it's either relevant to you or somebody you know. And I'm trying to stay the guy who continues to produce content that's just timeless. because I've gotten in trouble in the past of trying to keep up. I can't. Like the internet and the world is just, it's too quick. I'm just one guy. I'm not that fast. But hopefully people will find some value out of some of the content that I have on there. And again, if they want to reach out and connect, there's a spot at the bottom to contact us. If I can be of service, feel free to touch base.
Okay, fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, I'll be posting links to the Build Wealth website, to Jasper's book, and his social media channels, so you can get in touch with him and follow him and see what Build Wealth is up to.
Yes,
and
yes, sir.
Yeah, Jasper, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, man, I thoroughly enjoy these conversations and appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of the Tony Steuer Podcast. Until next time.